Coming to you entirely pre-recorded from the Garage of Solitude in New York, New York. I'm Mario-Francisco Robles.
And I'm Brett Miro, and this is episode 162 of the Fanboy Podcast.
Yes, and Brett, you don't be so self-conscious about where you're broadcasting from. He's coming to you entirely pre-recorded from Massapequa, Long Island.
That's right.
Long Island.
Matzo pizza. Yeah.
Lots of pizza and bagels and all of that. But Brett,
Yes.
screw pizza and bagels. Tell me, what have you been playing or watching this past week?
I have watched a ton of things. I haven't really been playing anything interesting, so we'll skip that this week. I've watched a million things. So let's start off. So first off, in the DC front, I watched and finished The Sandman on Netflix. And so just, for listeners, I have no background on The Sandman. I don't read the comics. I just know Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, however you pronounce his last name, is like the author of it. And that's really all I knew. So I went in pretty blind, and I loved the show. It was amazing. I think it's like about 10, 11 episodes long, and about 45 minutes to an hour each episode. And it's pretty amazing how engaged it kept me without being this it wasn't necessarily like this big action packed, even though it's a comic, it's not really based on superheroes. It's a little more like mythological. But yeah, there wasn't like all those like crazy actions and explosions. But it still kept me very engaged. It was more of like a heady kind of watch. It made you think.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly spent or gave them a really awesome budget. The visuals were absolutely stunning across the whole series. Like every episode was super high quality. The acting across the board was like phenomenal, even from some of the younger actors. Because there's kids, there's older folk, there's people in the middle, there's some some interesting characters. Patton Oswalt does a voice of a raven in it, and he's great. As you would expect. But I really enjoyed that series a lot. It kind of like, after seeing that, I'm like, I kind of maybe want to read the comics. They're like, get into them, because it's a really, really interesting story. I won't like summarize it here. You could just, just fucking look it up, as we say. So that was excellent. So it comes highly recommended from me. And by all accounts, just from what I've seen online. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few years back covering stories about how Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to be adapting it and bringing it to the big screen and possibly playing the Sandman himself and all that stuff. And then that project went to like some kind of development hell. Yeah. And then it never really came to fruition. And then somehow that eventually turned into this TV series. So I'm glad that this project ended up worth it.
Yeah, and after seeing it, I don't see how Joseph Gordon-Levitt would have like really fit that role. I mean, it would have been probably a very different show. I read some other interesting tidbits too, that the author Neil, I'm gonna keep saying Gaiman. It's Gaiman, so Gaiman. I don't know. He has been trying to make this show for quite a while, and supposedly like early 2000s they were going to make a movie, and I actually really like JGL. Don't put that. He's going to see it and he's going to contact me.
Yes, he is. Yes.
But apparently they were going to do a movie of this like a while ago, and supposedly the author like called up the studio and was like, please don't make this. Like, this is what you're about to do is like not good. Like, don't do it. And like they listened and they didn't do it. So that was like kind of interesting. But it looks like this was many years in the making, and it's excellent. And by all accounts, from anecdotally what I've seen online, a lot of people are saying it is a really faithful and really good adaptation of the comics or graphic novels. So that's really cool. So it's like one of the, and hey, this is a DC property. Listen, we've had a lot of turmoil on the superhero front, but this thing came out great. So I'm really hoping that they make more. They certainly left it off. They kind of closed off a story, but they left a place for it to go, and it was very, very cool. So that's number one. So that's The Sandman. The other thing I checked out was I watched the first 2 episodes of the new Lord of the Rings of Power series on Amazon. Another one where you could see, they had a big budget. I mean, the visuals, the quality of the costumes, the makeup, I mean, everything is really up there. It's I'm really enjoying it so far. As I'm sure you've probably, I say adaptation versus adaptation. Really? Is that a thing? I think they're both correct.
No, I think they're both accepted.
They are both correct.
I'm the other person. So you're the
Why do you want to
adaption
add the extra
person.
syllable? Why do you want to do
I'm
extra
the
work? You know,
adaptation. That's, I
work
don't know.
smarter,
Good
not
for you.
harder. You know what I mean?
You know.
But Lord of the Rings, another great adaptation of like the Silmarillion and some of like the unfinished works of Tolkien. Because I don't know if you know like the whole weird thing with the rights. Like I guess Warner Brothers Legendary has the rights to the film version of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, but the actual literary rights are still with the Tolkien estate.
Oh,
But
interesting. I
then
hadn't heard about that.
Amazon only has the rights to the Silmarillion, which is like the prequel to Lord of the Rings, and some of his like unfinished works and other like little writings. So that's
Yeah.
this really has to like be based off of that. I guess there are some things they cannot pull from the actual main series.
Why do they call it Tolkien's Little Writings then? No,
I don't know. I know why did they do that? So yeah. Anyway, you're killing my train of thought. So it's very good. And I was gonna say, I'm sure you have seen a lot of the stupid, really stupid, ridiculous online bullshit with the show. Just bunch of I'm not going to mince words here. Racists that are mad that there are elves and dwarves and made up fantasy people that are not just white. That's literally why everyone's in an uproar. And I'm like, guys, the shit's it's made up, and
yeah.
it doesn't matter at all, and it doesn't feel out of place at all. So if you're one of those people, like you're going out of your way to be a piece of shit, and I see you, and I want you to know that. So
And meanwhile,
that's a shame.
Neil Gaiman, since we're talking about him and Sandman, he's been clapping back on social media. I've been noticing, pointing out like when people say like, "No, it's not a racist thing. It's just not how the character is described in the book." And then Gaiman comes up with like an actual, description from the book that says he's, it's an elf of a darker color and texture than the other.
They say
elves.
the Harfoots, which are like kind of like proto hobbits. It says darker like they have
skin.
Nut brown skin. Like literally, that's like the actual quote.
Exactly.
So people are just absolutely. You're just showing your true colors, and then the more they try to explain how they're not being racist, they somehow are more racist. It's absolutely amazing. And listen, I'm just saying,
self-awareness, right?
I see some of the comments, I click on some of their profiles and see the other things they tweet, and they're either a bunch of names with a bunch of numbers after it that doesn't have a real picture of them, and you could see the types of things that they're retweeting. I'll leave it at that. Okay, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've watched the first 2 episodes. That's all that's available right now. By the time this episode airs, the 3rd episode will have come out, and I'm really enjoying it so far. The show looks beautiful. Acting's been great so far, and it's fun. It's a fun show, but also dark and serious. But it's already got like some really intriguing stuff going on. A lot of cool little like subplots branching out, and I think it's awesome. So I'm enjoying it.
Did you see what HBO did to try to kneecap their premiere?
They put the Game of Thrones prequel first episode on YouTube for free. Am I correct with that?
They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna launch Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
Which still had 25 million views, I think, on the first episode. It's the biggest Amazon launch. So no, don't let the stupid nonsense online fool you and the review bombing. Yeah. The show is definitely very good. I would say give it a shot. You know, don't get turned off by that. So that's been good. Now what else? There's one other thing. Oh yes, and She-Hulk. So I forgot if I talked about it like 2 weeks ago when like the first episode might have came out, but this is like the 4th episode was this week. I was enjoying it fine. It's growing on me. I think it's fun. It's a half-hour show. It goes by super quick, and the show relies very heavily on the charm of Tatiana Maslany, the lead. And she's very charming. I really just think like there's something I enjoy watching her. She's fun. She's really got a good personality. It's got the MCU humor thing, but it is doing like something different. It's like a weekly, case of the week kind of like procedural. And I think that's a neat little, niche for it to fill. And this week's episode I thought was very funny. I enjoyed it a lot. There's been a lot of Wong in it, and everyone loves Wong. It's cool, and I love like the fourth wall breaking stuff. It's actually the first like here and there, like the first 2 episodes, I was kind of like, I don't know, but like this week it like really landed for me. And listen, in some spots the CG definitely hits that uncanny valley thing, and you're kind of like, oh, it looks kind of weird.
I can tell just from looking at little clips
but it's weird because then there's
a lot to overcome.
There are some scenes where it looks like amazing, And then there are just some shots where it just doesn't really look good. It looks like they just look like too smooth and like, not real. So that can be distracting here and there, but I'm trying to just be like, hey, let me enjoy the show. And if I'm just enjoying like the week to week little, escapades, it's actually very fun. And like I said, this week episode really landed for me. And I'm going to keep watching. I think it's an enjoyable show, and it gives something a little different. Like I said, it's a really easy pill to swallow at a half hour. To stay with it. And like they've been having cool little things popping around here and there. Little references.
Let me ask you, you think it's something I could put on in front of the kids, the 11-year-old girl and the 8-year-old boy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't get too raunchy or anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't get too raunchy.
It's all right. Good.
Yeah. She's like dating in like one of the episodes, but it doesn't get like any, like doesn't really get risque or anything like that. It kind of plays that little borderline.
Yeah.
So,
gotcha.
I think as far as like all the geeky stuff, that's what I have watched. And I'm gonna bring this up too. One other thing. So just because I've had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the brain. There's been there's been games coming out. There's been a lot of little things. I checked out the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie on Netflix the other day.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to say, listen, I don't watch the show. I know there's like a Nickelodeon show now where with this like art style and everything. I watched like a quarter of it and I just could not finish it. I first of all, I absolutely despise the art style. I cannot stand it. I don't like the way they look. It pulls definitely from the kind of the style of the Michael Bay movies. Like Raphael is like comically huge, and all the other ones have like very weird proportions, and they kind of have clothes on and stuff. But it's got this very blocky kind of like Cartoon Network kind of animation style to it, which is not hitting for me. Ben Schwartz, who I love and I think is a great voice actor, and I love him on Parks and Rec, and I think he's great as Sonic. He actually voices Leonardo, and for me, it just not quite fit. They've also made some like interesting tweaks. Again, I don't watch the cartoon. I don't know if the cartoon was different from the movie because the movie has like this weird time travel element to it. So I don't know how much it connects to that. But they've done some tweaks to the personalities of the turtles, and which I guess I'm not opposed to, but I'm not like in this one, Leonardo, rather than being like the kind of like self-serious leader, he's a little more arrogant and cocky, which I was kind of like, that seems like more of a Raph thing. And Raph seems to be the one that's a little more like, you need to be a good leader, and is like more like trying to be on. So they kind of like swap that. Donatello is nerdy, but he also seems kind of snarky, and like they all kind of seem kind of snarky. And I was like, I don't know if I like any of these guys. And I don't know if maybe I should finish the movie and they're going to, listen, I'm sure if it's like over a series, maybe they start off this way and they grow more into the turtles we know and love. But for me, it just was not landing. They also made Splinter like fat. Like he's like fat and like sits on the couch. He's like not like in shape or like he looks like a lazy.
I like the idea but that's one of your critiques. They made Splinter fat.
Because it just doesn't fit. And like they're just all different weird sizes. So I really, it was not clicking for me. So I was a little disappointed. I think the way that the turtles were written is just fine, and it still works today. And I wish they kind of would have stuck with that. I know I'm like the one, I'm usually always like, I don't care if they change things. I'm contradicting my own. I'm usually like, just have fun, enjoy it. But like, for me, it wasn't clicking, So I know there's another CG movie coming out next year that Seth Rogen is producing. I'm hoping that hews more to the OG. And also for those that are thinking or wondering, my aside from the 90s one or 80s 90s Turtles animated show that I grew up on, the one that was on Nickelodeon that is CG, I think it came out around 2012. I absolutely love that series.
With Sean Astin as Leonardo, right?
Yes. Actually, I think he might be Raphael. Leonardo, if I'm not mistaken, was Jason Biggs, but then he said some weird stuff online, so he left around like the second season, and Seth Green took over. And his voice is a little weird, but they also kind of do like a meta commentary, like your voice sounds different after he got like punched in the throat or something. So they kind of acknowledged it. But and also what's cool is Donatello is voiced, if I'm not mistaken, by Rob Paulson, who was an original turtle voice from the 90s show, and I think did Raphael back in the day.
Yeah.
So and then I forgot who does Michelangelo, but whoever does Michelangelo is like amazing at Michelangelo. Like he does it. So it's like my favorite Michelangelo. So just for people wondering, you can actually catch that one on Netflix. There's like 3 seasons. And what I love about that one is you can watch it and 100% it was made by people our age, because there are a ton of references to the OG 90s show. There's also 2 crossover episodes with the 90s animated Turtles with the original voice actors. And there's a ton of references to the movies. And it is made for us, like literally. And it's that, like, the way they look and everything and their personalities are right on. And that's a damn good show. Damn good show. Yes. So I was sad that I only got 3 seasons and they put this weird blocky. I don't know. I was about to be mean. I don't like it. But you know what I mean? Like the if you want to see a good one, go watch that one. It's absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. All right. So yeah. So that's my rant.
Well, that segues perfectly into what I've been playing and watching, because you know how you mentioned a few weeks ago that Konami released the Cowabunga collection of the Ninja Turtles, the classic arcade style Ninja Turtles games. And I told you that my son and I recently got into those kind of beat 'em up style games like Double Dragon and Streets of Rage and all that kind of stuff. So I saw that was available. I bought it. But here's a word to the wise. I didn't even think about this. I bought it on the PS4 where I only have 2 controllers. But if I would have bought it on the Switch, yeah, exactly. I could have had 4 players, all 4 turtles. I could have my daughter play with us also and my wife. So I was kicking myself for that decision afterward. But I was not kicking myself for getting the collection. I didn't even realize how many games were on it when I bought it. I just saw games. That it had. It's insane. I mean, listen, it's $40 freaking dollars, but it's 13 games. And I didn't even realize that it has the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES game that was so hard I never beat it.
But there's like a rewind mode now. So you can like do rewind. And I heard you can like kind of attempt to beat it. That game's absolutely awful. Great music,
brutal, though. And it sucks.
Banger soundtrack.
All I remember is like a swimming level that made me want to kill myself.
Yeah, that's the one that everyone hates. Yeah.
But now I'm intrigued now to try it at age 39. You know, when I tried it the last time, I was probably 6 or 7, and I said, screw it. Now I'm going to try that one. But
I haven't picked it up yet. But there is online play. So when I do get it, we should definitely maybe hop and do some Turtles in Time or one of them, and we can do that online. I'll have to get it for PlayStation, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. And what made it extra cool, though, is, listen, I played the one that I played 1,000,000 times as a kid. The one that I played the most as a child was the Hyperstone Heist, the one that for Sega Genesis.
I played that one. Yeah, my cousins.
I played that one 1,000,000 times, and I have not played it now in at least like 25 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm playing it with my son as my player 2.
That's awesome.
You know, so we're going through the levels, and I'm remembering like, oh, well, listen, when we go past here, there's going to be a pizza pie. I need that, okay? Because I'm weaker than you. And that car is going to roll out of the garage in a second, so you got to get ready to jump. Like, I remembered all the old tricks. It was like it all came back to me real quick. And there was even just this funny little thing. You know, I used to laugh that if you paused at the right time while doing a jump as the turtle, if you paused at the right time, you just see the turtle's ass. Like he's upside down. I'll send you the picture. It's just that you see the turtle like is in like a fetal position, but on this pause, they're upside down, and you just see their big turtle ass and coming out of the shell. It cracks me up.
That's amazing.
And I got to make that joke with my son. I got to be like, hey, Seb, watch this. I used to point it out to my friends back in the day. And now I'm showing my 8-year-old, hey, watch what happens when I pause it. And he laughed. And now I have on my phone a pause of me and my son as players 1 and 2 mid jump with our asses out in a pause. It's a very special full circle moment for me there.
That's very good.
But yes. And then on top of that, we beat it all in one sitting. Like I remember going through Hyperstone Heist by myself when I'm like 12 or 13. It was a stressful afternoon. I would have to spend trying to get through this because you only get 3 continues and 2 lives per session in general. So you have like 6 lives to beat this very difficult game. And here I am with my son, and we crushed that thing in under 2 hours. And it was
awesome.
Yes. So
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't
real
know if you
sweet.
had picked up also like so as turtle fans, we've been eating good with the games. We got the Cowabunga collection, and then about like a month or so ago, we got the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think I talked about it before. Shredder's Revenge, which is
Yeah,
like a modern beat 'em up made like to be like the old school ones, and
yeah.
that's on Game Pass for free if you have Xbox, or you could
Ooh, I
buy
got
it
to
for
check
like
that out.
might
Okay.
be $25. You could buy it on Switch, PS4 thing, but
Mhm.
that's excellent and is just a big homage to basically everything in the Cowabunga collection, but with more quality of life improvements, and it's a little sharper, and they kind
Yeah.
of made it a little more in depth with the way you can attack and do different combos and moves and stuff. So, but yeah,
Nice.
just so much love. So we've been eating good, and there's a little bit more, but we're gonna talk about it in a topic later. So
Yes, yes, we are. The Ninja Turtles are quietly the thesis of episode 162.
yeah, I guess so.
But yes, aside from the Cowabunga collection, I've also finally sunk my teeth more into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And it's working its magic on me. I'm really digging it. It's a lot like Black Flag, but with Vikings.
Yeah.
So I'm very much into it. I hear we deal with Thor and Odin at some point in the game and all kinds of
Yeah.
craziness. So I can't wait to dig deeper into that like Viking lore by way of Assassin's Creed. But aside from that, what I've been watching, the main thing has been House of the Dragon. I
Mm.
finally got to check out the first and second episode. I think there have been 3 by now. So I'm not caught up with the rest of the world. But listen, I was very skeptical coming out of Game of Thrones, where everyone was super obsessed with it, including my wife and I. And then that last season ended up being such a tough pill for so many to swallow. I remember I didn't have as polarizing an opinion on it as a lot of others did, but I did kind of see it like, this mighty series kind of ended on a bit of a whimper. And when they announced that they're trying to develop all these different spin-offs and prequels, and Naomi Watts is going to do one, and this is that, and you started hearing that, like, some were going to survive development hell and some weren't. And there's all these different ways they could go with it, but it's getting really expensive. I started getting skeptical. I'm like, what if they do all this and no one really cares anymore? Because people were so put off
Right.
by the way Game of Thrones ended. And what if this is more like, what Fantastic Beasts is to Harry Potter than it is to some kind of other like monumental television extension of a
Right.
beloved IP. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, this could either go really bad or really well. And I'm very, very happy to report that through 2 episodes, my wife and I are totally hooked. I was grabbed within like 5 or 10 minutes, where now I'm like, I was so happy to now be back in Westeros, to be back in that realm, and know now that I can look forward to going back there every Sunday. And we're going to get a few seasons at least out of this show because the numbers have been ridiculous. So, they did it. They did it. They made a very, very interesting prequel to Game of Thrones that has me totally bought into the characters and the intrigue and the arcs. And yeah, so House of the Dragon has totally
Very cool.
won me over through 2 episodes. And
Very
that's really kind of all the time. That's all I've had time to watch other than wrestling. But I'm not going to get into wrestling stuff right now. It's been a crazy week in that regard.
Yeah, I've been
too.
seeing tweets. I don't know what's going on. None of
It's
it
just-
makes any sense to me, but
Yeah, it's full tilt chaos in All Elite Wrestling just at the same time that WWE is finally getting its act together. So it's all very interesting.
yeah.
But yes, so that's what I've been playing and watching. And now it is time to get into one of the juicier Superman on film updates I've had the pleasure of sharing with you right here on this show.
Juicy.
It's so juicy, in fact, it deserves music. Man. Ooh, who composed this? Lovely. Yeah. Theme music to accompany what I'm about to share with you folks, because over the last few weeks, I've been hearing all kinds of really interesting whispers, many of which I didn't really even want to believe because there's been so much back and forth and stop and start with DC rumors for the last 6 years. I don't know what to believe anymore. But in the last 2 weeks or so, I've been led to believe that Henry Cavill is going to be returning as Superman, and that we're going to be finding out more about that come October when Black Adam comes out. So it's funny because it seems to kind of go in line with what we were discussing last week on the last show. Remember, I was talking to you about how Jason Momoa said that Ben's back, and he didn't seem to just be talking about that little cameo that he'd already revealed a couple weeks prior on Instagram. I said this seems to be of a slightly different nature. He's saying Ben's back, and he's saying it like in general, not just for this. Yeah. So in tandem with that, it would appear that David Zaslav and the Brain Trust at Warner Brothers Discovery has decided that for the sake of continuity, for the sake of building a cohesive, coherent, shared universe, rather than introduce an all-new Superman, they seem to want to bring back Henry Cavill. They want to bring back Ben Affleck as Batman and keep them there in the wings as the DCEU's Superman and Batman. So that's a big full stop right there. All right, Brett, let's just start there, because I really am believing the rumors, and I'm going to add some of the stuff I've seen that kind of has me going down a rabbit hole of like, this could really be happening. But just based on just hearing that, what are you thinking, Brett?
Now, listen, we've gone over this like so many times. We've been talking about it for so long. Yeah. I'm happy to see Cavill back in the role if he is. I'm happy to see more of Ben Affleck's Batman. Like I really like them, and I wanted to see them in future projects. And you know, when you really think about like the shakeup at Warner Brothers and what's going on, they do want to continue this, they do have an established, you know, Justice League. So I think the smart thing is if you can get the guys back, which it looks like they are, I think that's a great thing. Keep them involved, and you know, they can kind of do like a soft reboot. It's not even like a soft reboot. It's just like, I don't think that we're going to be continuing the path and storyline that Snyder kind of put forth, but you have both of them in place, and we can just have some future adventures with them, with, you know, our Wonder Woman, our Aquaman, and well, we'll see what's going to happen with Ezra Miller, because that's still, you know, I know. Oh, that was the thing I guess we never really got to cover, that he like kind of apologized and went to the studio and he's getting help now. So, I mean, that we're covering it now. So we'll see though if like he really is going to exist beyond this Flash movie, and you know, also like how much that movie is really going to reset now, and how much that's really going to change things. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it seems like the smartest thing is, otherwise, you are starting from zero, or you have to, you know, you're keeping Gal Gadot, you're keeping Jason Momoa, you're keeping Ezra Miller, and then have to have some weird explanation as to why there's a different guy playing Superman and a different guy playing Batman. It seems like a good move. I think it'll make fans happy. It's kind of like a half measure. Hopefully people, you know, people that are diehard Snyder fans are just happy to have that cast back and are cool with just moving forward with maybe some different stories than what Snyder was going to tell. Because as we know, those weren't necessarily the most popular. That wasn't necessarily the most popular path for these characters to go on. But I think everyone did really enjoy the actors.
Yes, I agree. So now let me add a little bit more other interesting breadcrumbs I've seen out there that make me go, Aside from the fact that some reporter friends of mine and people who do still very much linger in those scoop circles, including people whose opinions I really value, they're all telling me like, no, this is not just some wide-eyed, crazy internet rumor. All the word on the street amongst anyone who's following or anywhere close to Warner Brothers and DC lately is that no, they want themselves some Batfleck and some Cavill Superman. And we're going to get into the Black Adam trailer in a little bit too. They seem to have a thing right now about continuity, and once again establishing that this is a shared landscape that, you know, includes a lot of different DC characters. But for now, you know, some interesting things that were recently brought to my attention. So Aldous Hodge, who plays Hawkman in Black Adam, on July the 13th, all right, this is less than 2 months ago, he posted from the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank. he posted on his Instagram a picture of himself in front of the Warner Brothers, water tower thing. And he says, just knocked out some post work for Black Adam, putting on the finishing touches. As an avid comic book lover who's seen damn near every superhero movie, I can confidently say that Black Adam is beyond incredible. Y'all not ready. So he brings up the comic book lover thing, all right?
Mhm.
And what's interesting is the very next day, somebody tweeted out from a coffee shop in Burbank, just met the actor from Superman at the coffee shop. As if he was just there. So this is another thing where so Henry's in town. They're doing posts for Black Adam. We've already heard rumors of Superman being in Black Adam. Listen, I know some of this is a little bit, me as Charlie Day in front of a board, connecting dots. But I'm not the only one, between what certain reporters and journalists and bloggers are starting to put out there and what fans are starting to connect, along with stuff like my old buddy Nick Farina pointed out, where he seemed to be in town when Shazam was filming, also with his hair dyed extra black, which he only does when he's Superman. There's lots of different reasons to think that maybe, just maybe, this thing is going to happen. There was even a quote that I read from Dwayne Johnson where he's talking about Henry, which we know sometimes he's been a little non-committal about Superman. He said he wants Black Adam to fight Superman and that they're kind of, reverse engineering everything to get to that fight in a way that was like the first kernel of the idea was fans really want to see this fight. So how do we get there? But aside from that, when it comes to who's, playing him, he said something once like, we'll see who it is. It all depends on who plays him. But there's an interesting thing where in July, Johnson was speaking to comicbook.com and he said, I will say this. I will say that Henry is a buddy and he is a phenomenal Superman. He is a phenomenal Superman, and Henry Cavill is the Superman of our generation with respect to the other Supermans of the past. Every time I see him, we have some tequila, and I say, this guy is Superman. My longtime business partner and ex-wife, Danny Garcia, has been a passionate advocate for Henry Cavill and his career for a very, very, very long time. It's funny. It sounds like he's almost overhearing about Danny talk about it. Henry's so great. But yeah, so it was interesting seeing that quote and that he said that in July also when this this post-production work on Black Adam was happening and Henry himself was spotted there at the coffee shop in Burbank. So I'm telling you, I'm starting to really believe it. People who I trust and find credible are starting to believe it. So it's just crazy what a difference a regime change can make, because if you would ask us a few months back if we were going to see Batfleck ever again, the answer would have been hell no. If you had asked a few months, even I think on the last episode of the show, I was casting doubt on whether or not it's going to be Henry, because there had been rumors that in the post-credit sequence that does include him, you actually hear the Williams theme, which I wonder if they're going to do something like that though, where like they did on the Joss Whedon Justice League, where they put the Christopher Reeve theme on while Henry Cavill's on the screen. I don't like that. There's a cognitive dissonance that occurs as soon as you do that to me. Like, I get it. You're trying to say like, well, Henry's playing Superman and this is the most iconic Superman theme. But no, he's got an iconic Superman theme composed by Hans Zimmer, and give us that one. But then again, I also know like I can't get too hung up on that, because I remember when there was a Shazam like video clip that aired with this kid playing with action figures. He had a Superman toy and another toy, and he was humming and people lost their minds, getting pissed off because again Shazam is set in the DCEU, and if that's their Superman, so all of that considered, the last time we spoke, I'm like, I don't think it's going to be him, but I honestly think now it is. I'm really kind of convinced that it is going to be him. I just hope that they don't do the Williams theme, because I feel like that's going to muddy the waters. It's going to feel like just some sort of weird mismatch again. And here's the one sort of bitter pill to swallow, though, because in both of these cases, it doesn't seem to be that either of these guys is getting like a solo franchise. You know, they're not bringing back Batfleck now so he can make that Deathstroke Batman movie he wanted to make. You know, they're bringing him back because they need someone to be that elder statesman, Bruce Wayne Batman, for when they want to do any kind of DCEU crossover stuff. A Batman who could pop up in a Flash movie, a Batman who could pop up in an Aquaman movie, as he apparently is going to, a Batman who could show up and, you know, where Bruce shares a scene with Clark in some other situation. You know, these two actors are going to be asked to appear in more than likely larger crossover style stories, things along the lines of The Flash, things like that. You know, we are unlikely to get solo films. And with Batfleck, I'm cool with that because we've got Battinson. So if I just have Batfleck around as the veteran guidance, the Nick Fury of a new Justice League team, I can hang with that. But when it comes to Henry, you know, it's a little bittersweet unless they are going to let him continue his arc and tell more stories as Superman. Because in that particular case, he would not be competing with an alternate version of Superman that's already launched, you know, as Batfleck would if they tried to have him make his movies. So I would say with Cavill, I imagine, you know, there's more hope than with Batfleck that he would get his films. But at this point, you know, it just seems like this would be to establish that there is a DCEU Superman. And as of this writing and as of this moment, it is still Henry Cavill, which we were saying even when Peacemaker came out, where, you know, they omitted certain characters from the big Justice League cameo at the end, but they purposely left in a Henry Cavill looking Superman. That was a clue even back then that, like, this, you know, they're still willing to say that this is our guy, you know, and with Johnson calling him the Superman of our generation, you know, I'm like, I would love it if Henry could really grow into being that. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he's there yet. He's like one phenomenal movie away from being that Superman, you know, that generational Superman. So yeah, any closing thoughts on the possibility of both Batfleck and Henry coming back?
So is this whole shakeup at Warner Brothers really what Dwayne Johnson meant when he said the hierarchy of power of the DC universe is about to change? Because I'm wondering if he knew all along. Well, that's one thing. The other thing, I mean, I think it's cool, like you said, to bring these guys back, and I think I could live if they didn't do if Ben Affleck didn't do another solo Batman film. But it does seem like a damn shame to not have another solo film with Henry Cavill. That said, what's going on with this Ta-Nehisi Coates script now? Is that still going to happen? Are we going to have a Battinson situation where we do get another Superman in its own little solo thing? And then, I mean, I'm cool with these. Again, this is going back. I feel like this is deja vu, dude. Like, it's like, I'm cool with the little pocket universes that are not connected and then having one connected one. Like, I am cool with this idea. I mean, if you're not cool with this idea, look in the mirror and ask yourself, why not? You're getting the best of both worlds. So, and I think there's a smart way to do it where it's not confusing. So, I mean, yeah, there's that question that comes up. Then also, like, you know, okay, having them pop up here again in like a crossover film, in a Flash film, in an Aquaman film, but it also seems damn shame we're going to get Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill back. We're not going to do another Justice League film. You're going to bring the whole crew back and then not do another Justice League film. You're just going to have them pop up here in the other solo films. So there's some of that kind of seems just like, I mean, it does seem like a little bit of a half measure. But hey, you know, listen, I guess I'll take what I can get at this point, you know?
I also feel like money talks, right? So if Black Adam is the runaway success that Dwayne Johnson seems hell-bent on making sure that it is, if it's one of these movies, it comes out in October and similar to how Venom did in that release window, runs up a tally of almost $1 billion. I think they're going to be able to greenlight whatever they want out of that
Yeah.
universe. You know what I mean? Including whatever plans Dwayne wants to do with Superman. Because, like, let's say Black Adam is this big runaway success, and the big thing that people keep talking about afterwards is, yo, did you see that Superman tease? You could see the people at Warner Brothers Discovery going, all right, there's a lot of buzz on this Superman. So maybe Henry's worth a look again to give him like a Man of Steel 2.
Yeah, and you got to imagine that if this movie, if Black Adam does well, that also just gives Dwayne Johnson even more power and influence as well.
Yeah,
it seems like he has a decent amount now too. But the more, like you said, money talks. The more that his movies do well, the more he's been able to kind of direct things the way he wants them. So
exactly, so. It's an exciting time. To me, it's kind of an unexpected time. But for now, like you asked with the Ta-Nehisi Coates thing, I'm not hearing anything about that. I kind of get the sense all of that is on the back burner as they're trying to, as the new leadership and this new team that we heard about a couple weeks ago that's been assembled to try to put together a 10-year cohesive plan for the DC universe that spans movie and television. It seems like those people are trying to like simplify things too. I feel they're trying to I feel like there are a lot of different pocket universes, and I feel like they probably already are very aware of the fact that look, we've got a Batman that exists on his own and a Joker that exists on his own.
Yeah.
Are we really going to introduce another Superman when we've got a functioning Superman? You know what I mean?
But then make the damn movie.
But
you know what I mean? Like
the damn movies.
Zaslav came in. Remember? Listen, one of the first things he said was like, "You got Superman. Yeah. Why is this character floundering?" And it's fine to have Cavill and then put him in these crossovers, but like you need to have a solo Superman film. So
do.
At the very least, I think we got to get Cavill that solo Superman film. Ben Affleck could just, like you said, be the elder statesman popping in and out. Yeah. Maybe we get a world, or you could do a World's Finest. I mean, hey, there's some potential there. Maybe they'd be down for that. But Cavill, if you're bringing him back, you got to give him the solo film.
And what would you think of this? In other interviews, he sort of alluded to the fact that like he would love to go back and tell a story that picks up from where Man of Steel ended. Because, he always felt like Man of Steel set him up to go in an interesting direction. And instead, it just turbo jumped straight to BVS and the death of Superman and Doomsday and all that other stuff. He would love a chance to be like, let's go back to where Man of Steel left the character and what happened next. That was day one on the job. What's day two look like in a way, And I wonder if with everything that the Flash is going to attempt to rejigger with the multiverse and have Supergirl be the one who dealt with Zod and Feora and all that. Remember, there's all kinds of weird stuff that's going to happen in the Flash to reset things. I wonder if by the end of that, somehow we'll be able to like have a Superman who's in a place where now Henry could take over and tell a story that doesn't have to do with BVS, an alternate path, where rather than him meeting Bruce Wayne next and all that going on, now we just continue on from what his initial sort of debut on Earth,
Right. I think that's something that certainly could work. I mean,
he's 10 years older now, but
he is. That's the thing. He is 10 years older. And though, listen, I know some people loved what happened in Batman vs Superman and Justice League. Some of us were kind of like, on it, but there definitely was a change in the character and some more character development. So it also seems like a shame to throw that away and go back to right after he snapped Zod's neck and then have to go off of that. Like, it seems like he kind of, the way that even the Snyder cut presented it is like he came back more heroic, more ready to be the hero he needs, and the Superman that we know. So I think you could still just go from that and still tell a great story, because at the point he's at now, he pretty much is the Superman I think that we've always wanted to see, that we really wanted to see from the beginning.
And honestly, that's one area where they're very fortunate. Because no matter which version of Justice League you want to continue from, both of them gave us a Superman that was more traditional and more recognizable. I know that
Yes.
people have their cringy opinions about the mustache CGI and some of the lines and whatever, but overall, both representations of Superman were embraced as being far more the traditional, recognizable, iconic hero, Boy Scout of old. So no matter which way they want to go continuity wise, Henry Cavill in both versions of Justice League showed a more classic Superman. So he
and I'll
could
say
go
it.
on from here.
I'll say it again. The mustache thing sucks. In the Justice League, but that opening scene with the kids videoing on the camera is the best modern Superman scene written on film. Put Joss Whedon aside. I know we hate him. I know he's weird. He's creepy. All that stuff. That is the best written and probably best performed Superman scene on film in the modern era. I'm saying
Meanwhile,
it here,
I didn't
folks.
get it the first time, but yeah.
Really? Yeah. I mean,
I'm telling you, I've come around on that scene.
I can watch
then,
it again,
first time I
and
saw
it gives me chills, dude. It gives me chills. My hair stands on end.
because those
There
boys are
is
talking to Superman. You get it.
yeah,
You feel
and
it.
his listen, Cavill plays it so good, and I just there's something about it. He's very like short, and then there's this beautiful like hopeful smile
There's a
that comes out
depth.
of his face at
Yeah.
the end,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it says the world. It really does. I encourage you, like, if you might hate the lip, go back, watch it, and try to ignore the lip. Maybe even just close your eyes, because there is some amazing. There's just warmth that just kind of comes out of that scene, and Cavill deserves the credit. And listen, it is very well written. It's the most Superman friggin' thing like ever. I don't know, in my opinion, it really is. It really is a wonderful scene. It's maybe the only good thing to come out of that movie, I guess. I don't know.
Listen, I'll get burned for this a million times, but I think Joss Whedon, for all of the things he got wrong and did wrong, I thought he wrote a very, very decent Superman in Justice League. I got to tell you. And I think Henry played him well, and Henry was kind of excited and hopeful to be able to continue now on from there at least. And homie's been in limbo since 2017. Poor guy has not been able to continue his redemption arc in now 5 years. But here we are, and it looks like the countdown to seeing Cavill again is down to not very long, because it's September, Brett. October is next month. So if all these rumors are true, that we're going to see Superman in Black Adam in some way, shape, or form, and that they're going to establish, it won't be a headless one. They're going to establish that it's Henry, because Henry is coming back to be the definitive Superman of the DCEU. I'm going to be a very, very happy guy. Very, very
well.
happy.
You might even be happier if it ends up not being a headless Superman cameo, but it's just his ass, and it's just a big Superman ass right on screen. And it talks. The cheeks move like Ace Ventura.
Like Ace Ventura style? Yeah.
Yeah.
But would there be a CG'd mustache over the ass crack? Or like just for fun? Or?
Yes, there'd be a couple of uncanny valley like spots on the cheek where they would wobble in a weird, unreal,
great
wavy
on
fashion.
That note, speaking of uncanny valley and CG that is sometimes questionable, did you see the Black Adam trailer that arrived Thursday
Savage
during the
transition.
NFL?
Yeah, that was a savage transition.
I mean, listen, I let me just get my mind right off the bat. I enjoyed it. I think it's the best bit of marketing the movie has gotten, along with the poster they dropped like a day or two ago. Like, it seems like the marketing is finally hitting on all cylinders, and we're getting a sense for why Dwayne Johnson is so excited for this film. And I think it has potential to do great, great things.
Yeah.
But there were definitely some times in the trailer where, it looks a little video gamey, where he's kind of teleporting around a little bit. And I'm like, the CG's not quite there yet. And I know we have a little bit of time to still polish things off before the film comes out. But I feel like that was my one big bitch, was that the CG every once in a while was like, ooh, he just became a cartoon for a second. That's going to be a problem if the movie
He's a
is
big rubber
magic.
boy, rubber gummy
Yeah.
bear man.
I don't want that. But aside from that, I thought it was a really cool trailer. A really interesting way to position this character, this idea that his power is born of rage. And right off the bat, this is someone who lost his son, and the son sacrificed his life to save his father. And, right off the bat, it positions him as a very different kind of hero. A lot of the other heroes and origin
You don't
stories we've
say.
seen. Yeah.
Well, Mario, I don't know if you watched. I don't think you really watched the trailer, because if you really watched it, he's not a hero. Okay.
Oh,
he never said he was a hero.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but definitely this was the best showing of it so far. 100%. Yeah, there's some shoddy CG. I also hope, I know it's probably just recorded for the trailer, but when he's like, my son sacrificed himself, I was bored. I'm like, stop reading the cue cards, Dwayne. He sounds like he's straight up reading from the cue cards. The thing is, I think the movie is going to do well, because I just think you don't underestimate The Rock. Dwayne Johnson can literally do anything. The guy sells fucking tickets. The movie looks like it's going to be a spectacle. I just wondering if it's really going to have the heart and the depth that I'm hoping it does. I'm nervous it's going to come up a little shallow and just kind of just be just a big spectacle. So I think it's fair to say that that is a lot of his films are very much like a big spectacle. They got the quippy one-liners. Listen, they're fun. They're fun. You know what I mean? They're fun. There's a lot of spectacle.
Popcorn movies.
Yeah, they're popcorn movies. And, listen, I my opinion is I think this is going to end up being a big popcorn movie. And listen, maybe that's going to be fine for a lot of the audiences. But, I want to, this is kind of even though this was kind of started being made under the old regime, to me, this kind of feels like the real big intro into this next era.
This is DC putting a fresh foot forward finally.
But it has some, it was made under the baggage of the old one. So I know maybe I'm expecting too much because it was made from that. But this, to me, it feels like that. And I was hoping that, or I am hoping that it comes in with a little more depth, a little more, gravitas. And I don't know. And none of these trailers have really showed me that yet. But they certainly, it looks fun and big and booming, So, yeah.
Well, you hear about the tragic, powerful origin. You hear the whole thing about his son sacrificing his life, and there's some visuals to that look almost very sort of oddly enough, like Zack Snyder's 300. And by the way, it seems like Jamais Colette Serra, is that the guy who did it? Also cribbed.
Don't ever say that to me ever again.
The floating body image of his son looks a lot like when Clark is floating in the ocean after rescuing the oil refinery people at the beginning of Man of Steel. When he's flying there next to the jets and he's out in the desert, it's also very Man of Steel-y there. Again, it made me just want to see these guys fight, by the way. I'm like, oh my God. He has such a Superman vibe, but he's dark and stressful and rageful. Imagine him and Superman going full Super Saiyan on each other someplace. That would be crazy. But then there were two things that jumped out at me. One is minor, but I guess the rumors that went around that we even mentioned, and now we need to, discipline ourselves. We mentioned on the last episode the rumors that the film was gonna jump from ancient Egypt to the 1950s, but it looks like it actually goes straight to the modern day. The Justice Society that he deals with is a justice society that operates in modern day. There's lots of modern technology. There's lots of this is not the 1950s things.
So those jets were not 1950s jets.
Not
those
at all.
were modern.
And there was
jets.
a thing where the mansion that Dr. Fate comes from, the ground is moving and a giant jet is flying out. This is clearly whoever came up with that rumor was on crack.
It's not a rumor.
It's not a rumor.
It's not a rumor.
Nonsense now. So that finally went out the window. So now it's good to have clarification on the timeline. But even now, in terms of the continuity, because on the last show we talked about, is Black Adam in the DCEU? You know, considering they seem to be going with a headless Superman cameo that had the John Williams theme, and Dwayne Johnson has been somewhat self-conscious in the past of trying to share where Black Adam sits in the DCEU continuity and how it interacts with Zack Snyder's old plans back in the day. So we were talking about that on just the last show. But smack dab in the middle of this trailer, who do we see?
That's right.
We see Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, who has now played that role in Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer, in Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, and in the very successful Peacemaker HBO series. Yes. So that means that this Black Adam is set in the same world as those other films. Yes, and if we're going to go there, who did Amanda Waller talk to at the end of the first Suicide Squad? It's Batfleck. It's the Bruce Wayne Batman. That's who Jared Leto's Batman and Margot, what's her name? Margot Robbie. Harley Quinn deals with in Suicide Squad. So this means that Batfleck exists in Black Adam. Henry Cavill's Superman exists in Black Adam. So right off the bat, seeing her face worked right in line with all the rumors I've been hearing and all the stuff that makes it really seem like, oh no, this is they're going for a shared continuity again. For the first time in ages, DC is not relying on the multiverse conceit, but is actually showing you, here's a new movie that you know, with a character most of the mainstream knows absolutely nothing about. But we're going to show you a character that's been in several other DC projects in recent years to let you, the audience, know that this is all part of one big story. So I thought that was kind of a bold choice. I thought it said a lot, and I think it works hand in hand with these rumors of exactly how much they're going to be buddying up to the DCEU in the weeks and months and years ahead.
Indeed.
So, yeah, seeing Amanda Waller was like, oh, there we go. This is now in continuity with all that other stuff. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, what they pick and choose and what they keep from here. But for now, Black Adam, as to the question of whether or not it's in the DCEU, we seem to now know 100% that it is.
Yeah.
Was there anything else about the trailer you wanted to hit on before we move on?
We had actually like a good shot. A shot of the Atom this time.
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, let's talk about the Justice Society a little bit. Yeah, we saw the Atom.
We've seen Hawkman a few times now. We've seen Dr. Fate doing a little stuff with his weird mask thing. Who else am I missing? There's like another. Did they show anybody else? I don't
know. Those were the main three that they seem to highlight real well.
But they showed the Atom all big, and I was like, oh, cool. So we're getting our DC Ant-Man, you know. So that'll be pretty cool. So
I've been hearing good things about Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate, by the way, and I think it is pretty cool having Pierce Brosnan enter the world of DC.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. It's Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, having former James Bond, Pierce Brosnan himself.
Hell yeah.
The Bond that I grew up watching. You know, he's my Bond, because that's, you know, when I was a teenager, the GoldenEye and all that, that was the thing, man.
Yeah, that was like my first like real introduction, and then like from there I went back and I worked at a video store, so I went back and watched like every Bond movie leading up to, and then I've seen all the new ones too. So yeah. He was good.
So, all right, moving on from Black Adam, we got to circle around to a topic that we discussed on the last show when it looked like DC had found its Kevin Feige, and apparently not so fast. Nope. Dan Lin, according to the trades, has dropped out of negotiations to be the central sort of figurehead in in DC films, to be the guy who's running the show a la Kevin Feige. We had a long discussion about him on the last episode, and the, you know, kind of what his qualifications were and his history with the DC IP and how he had hoped to kind of have a chance to redeem himself there. But as it turns out, They were not able to come to any kind of agreement. Apparently, one of the big things was he has his own production shingle that has its own stuff in the pipeline, including projects for Disney Plus. And they were not able to agree on a right price for them to also acquire his production shingle and the property and whatever it is that they've got in the pipeline. So Mr. Dan Lin is not going to be the architect. It looks like we're back at in the searching phase here, right, of trying to find who is going to be that person. So it doesn't shock me again that whoever is coming into this job has to make sense of all of this disparate stuff. And at a time when, like, again, it would be the easiest thing in the world if you're going to be the one who's going to like make the decisions and be in the hot seat when things go wrong. You're going to want to have as much control over the property as possible.
Yes.
You're going to want to be able to come in and call every shot. In this particular case, whoever is coming in on a train that is leaving the station, that left the station years ago, and with other movies coming out that have their own agenda, like Black Adam. And
they're literally jumping on a speeding train. Like they have to jump aboard and grab on and then try to like redirect it. They're changing the tracks in real time. You know what I mean? So it is.
It's bizarre, and it's like, I compared it to like, Kevin Feige didn't suddenly start unfurling his MCU plans once the Ant-Man movie came out. Right. He was there from day one. Putting this whole thing together. So whoever comes in is not going to have that ability. Whoever comes in is going to be taking over a franchise that's already been pulled in several different directions and is now about to be kind of relaunched on the backs of Black Adam and Shazam and the Flash and all that. So I can totally see whoever is interviewing for this job feeling like this is kind of thankless and it's going to be really hard for me to make sense out of all this. But for now, Dan Lin is not going to be that guy. And that means that Joker is not going to be one of his problems. Let's talk about this Joker sequel. There's been some interesting rumors coming out. We know that Lady Gaga is pretty much she's official now to play Harley Quinn opposite Joaquin Phoenix. And they also added to the cast this week. They added Catherine Keener. Catherine Keener, who is always great in everything she does.
She is good.
Last thing I saw her in was in Get Out, and she scared the hell out of me in Get Out. But yeah, so she's joined the cast in a mysterious new role. And while discussing the film, people are discussing the film as if it's going to be not just a musical, but also kind of like a macabre sort of horror story in a way too. It's going to have horror elements.
They're going Sweeney Todd with it.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like this is going to be Phoenix and Gaga doing Joker by way of Sweeney Todd. And I'm so I'm here for it. I don't know what to make of it, but just all those different elements together crack me up. Like horror, musical, Lady Gaga, Joaquin Phoenix, Joker. All right, sure. Let's see how that goes. Why not?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, obviously with the title, Folie A Deux, or however you say it in French, like that. So like I've discussed this before when they announced it. This is a real like psychological thing. It is when two or more people join in a shared delusion. So there is this, when you think about that, it's like, okay, Joker and Harley fall in love and they're in this shared delusion. And why wouldn't their delusion be this like beautiful, macabre horror musical where like people are, maybe that's how they're seeing it, but people are really dying and getting hurt and damaged in real life. And there could be like a really cool aspect to it where you're seeing how through their eyes, how they see it. and then it cuts and you're just seeing like some really horrific shit that actually went down. But when they see it, it's just like choreographed and the stage, and then you're just seeing like it cuts back to like dimly lit hallways spattered in blood, or something. I mean, maybe I'm going too far with it, but there could be something really, really neat with this. So when they first announced it, I was like, okay, interesting, cool. And then like it's just the more and more I think about it, I'm like, this could be really neat. One thing I'll actually, what makes this makes me think of is there is a show on, I think it's AMC or like AMC Plus. It was like I think it's their streaming service. It's called Kevin Can Fuck Himself. I don't know if you've heard of the show.
No.
It's with Annie Murphy, who was, if you watch Schitt's Creek, she was the sister on Schitt's Creek. Yeah, so this is her next project. So they're on the second season, and this looks like it's going to be the final one. I'm not sure if it was only planned to be 2 seasons or if like they were just like, listen, you could do one more season, then you got to close up shop. But basically the whole premise is half of the show is in front of a live studio audience sitcom. And the title is a spin on Kevin Can Wait, which was like the King of Queens guy, Kevin James. He had a show called Kevin Can Wait that came out.
I remember that.
So it's basically that. It's basically King of Queens almost. And so part of it is shot, and the actual camera work is that of a in live studio audience. There's a set. It's very brightly lit. There's really corny dialogue and little gags and jokes. And like basically she's married they're from Boston. She's married to this husband who's just like a total just fucking like the beautiful trophy wife that has to suffer with this idiot, stupid fucking husband. And then they have like the dopey best friend and his sister that he lives with. And the sister's kind of like a weirdo and a little more like rough around the edges, doesn't open up. But then the other half of the show, like when the husband leaves the room, all of the lighting and everything changes and it looks like an HBO, like serious, like drama. And it's amazing what they do. There's this incredible effect, the way they pull it off. Like everything changes. Like it's the same room and everything, but it looks just completely different. And then there's like the serious aspect, and like, kind of the premise behind that show is like, she's, making do with the husband and, whatever. And then she's like, kind of like, I my life fucking sucks. I hate this guy and I want to kill him, So like that's kind of thing. And if you watch that show and then start thinking about what this is going to be, it's like, oh, there's something, because this show nails that. And I'm like, if the movie can do that, this is something could be really, really neat. So
you just kind of made me think about, did you ever see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino?
Mm-hmm.
I love what he did there when DiCaprio's character was on the set of that Western.
Yeah.
And you could tell that when he, as an actor, was in the zone, everything around him looked like he was in the Wild West. It looked like the lighting, everything was like he was in it. He was in that saloon. It was
like immersive. It was real. Yeah,
it was real life. And then as soon as they go like cut and like he's out of it and he's back in his insecure mind, suddenly now you see the cables everywhere, and you could tell it's just a set.
Yeah,
and it's that same sort of idea of like that illusion that you're inside the character's reality for a second. You're seeing the way they're living it.
Exactly. And that's awesome. Also Kevin Can Fuck Himself. Like that's like you see it through her point of view, and then like through like the husband's stupid, goofy view of everything. Yeah. And listen, I'm telling you, I watched the show. Me and my fiance Jesse love it. Yeah. And if they can do it as well as that, there's something neat here.
Yeah.
So if that's what they're going to do,
Yeah. And just bringing it back to Joker 2 before we move on.
Yeah.
Just I feel like I feel one sense of disappointment in that title about it being a shared delusion, because I just feel like they're going to have to answer the question at the end of Joker that people were, people weren't sure of, like, well, let's see, was all of that in his head? Or is he in the asylum now because of what he did? Yeah, there was some ambiguity, and you as the viewer, kind of like at the end of Inception, like, did the spinner fall or not? Yes. And it was something that you as an audience, you could argue about it one way or the other, right? Here, I feel like with the sequel, we're going to find out one way or the other whether or not that was real, So
When
You
they
know,
first
again,
announced this, I did a solo episode, and that was like one of my things too. I said they're gonna have to clarify some of what happened in the first week, or hey, listen, maybe there's a really creative way where they can still keep you guessing. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
But something we don't have to guess about at all anymore is who's going to
Ah,
play Jonathan Kent on Superman and Lois. A couple
who?
weeks ago, all of us fans were caught off guard by the news that Jordan Elsass was leaving his role as Jonathan Kent, the non-superpowered twin son of Superman and Lois. And now we know that they've cast a young Australian actor by the name of Michael Bishop. And what's interesting about Michael Bishop, because his credits are not altogether notable, so there's not even really any reason to go into them. And then again, I didn't know Jordan Elsass. I didn't know Alexander Garfin, who plays Jordan Kent. I didn't know either of these kids before they were cast, and I thought they were both great. So I don't really care so much about their credits. I tend to try to trust Todd Helbing and the other people running Superman and Lois to just cast this thing right. But if you look at him, he looks a lot more like he could be a twin with Alexander Garfin. He's got
just looked him up.
curly, darker hair, and the blue eye. Like to me, he looks a lot more like he could be the twin brother of Jordan Kent.
Yeah, they look more.
He's
They
a
look
lot
like
more
they'd
of
be
a
more
physical
related.
match. Yeah. He's a lot more of a physical match than Jordan, who was actually a little more blonde and with the preppy short hair. Like it didn't, granted, I'm sure they wanted to contrast the two brothers,
Right.
but Michael Bishop looks like absolutely the twin brother of Alexander Garfin. So
I mean, listen, it's very likely they might change his look up so he doesn't look exactly like him, and they'll probably give him a haircut and stuff. But whatever. When I first heard this news, I think Jordan Elsass, the original Jonathan Kent, I always thought he was the better actor of the two brothers. So I was very disappointed to see him go. But yeah, hopefully this new guy Michael Bishop is good, and I think it'll be fine. They'll stick him in. No one will think twice about it as long as the show sticks to its what it's been doing, because I think it's been doing everything really great. I think we can kind of move on. I'm not like that heartbroken over it.
My only thing is he had to be Australian. He better be good at hiding the accent, because that's one thing. Like I suck at that too. Like as soon as I know that someone is foreign, I spend the entire time trying to hear where the accent gets goofy. Like it sucks. Like it pulls me out of the reality of the scene.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
like, there it was on that word right there. That was Scottish. I heard it. But either way, so they got an Australian guy. I can hang with it. But now, did you hear about this never-ending story thing, Brett? That's right now on the heels. Fantasy apparently has never been hotter. With House of the Dragon coming out and just and crashing HBO Max, with Lord of the Rings coming to Amazon Prime and the 25 million streams, and it's the biggest thing they've ever done. Clearly there is an appetite for fantasy, and they are looking at the nostalgia and the never ending story IP right now. There's like a bidding war going on where the guy who wrote it, the guy who created it, I don't even think is alive anymore, but his estate, his kids, his heirs are currently fielding these huge offers and bids of millions upon millions of dollars for all these different people who want to get the rights and be the one who adapt the never ending story for some streaming TV show. And as soon as I read it, though, it's like, sometimes you hear about certain adaptions. No, you hear about certain pitched adaptations, as refined people might say. And you're like, that seems far-fetched. How are you going to do that? Or that property doesn't really lend itself to that. But as soon as I read that, I'm like, a never-ending story TV series in a world that loves fantasy, and a world that loves Stranger Things, and a world that loves all this like 80s nostalgia stuff. That's that's brilliant. That's a perfect way to go. And I'm also curious to see how Willow does with that in mind too.
That's right.
Fantasy getting a TV adaptation, but never ending story. What was that a big one for you, Brett?
Yeah, I actually have a deep love for Neverending Story. So
nice.
when I was like a long time ago, when I was a young lad, I used to always make my mom take me to the library because you can get like, free like movie rentals, and we were like definitely broke when I was younger and stuff. So if you go to the library, and I would literally just like always take out Neverending Story and Neverending Story 2, and I must have watched those movies like 1,000 times. Like, and hey kids, we had a VCR back in the day. You got to rewind that shit. You had to wait. You can just rewind chapters. But I mean, I watched the crap out of those. I love them. They're it's a really, really cool fantasy world. There's a lot of really unique characters in it. And, back in the day, they had to use like, just practical effects and like probably like Jim Henson creature shop and stuff like that. And, it's got the flying dog, Falcor. It's like one of the most iconic things ever. They even spoofed it on Family Guy. Yeah. It's a pretty iconic thing. Atreyu. All these moments, I can still remember all of them. The princess, the big
when
rock
they do
golem.
the horse drowning into the nothing, when they have the horse
the mire,
drowning,
the swamp. It's horrible.
like
it's
that's going to be brutal when they restage that, if they do.
But
that
I mean,
story.
It is just really cool. Like I would just wish, I wish I could be that kid getting sucked into that book. Like that was like my dream. I was like, I hope one day I'm gonna open a book, I'm gonna get sucked in and go on this like amazing fantasy adventure. So I mean, like it is right up my alley. And like what they could do with it today with like some real solid writing and and a budget, it's a very, very cool, rich, unique fantasy world. So I'm very excited to hear this news, and I really hope they can make something special out of it, and it's not a dud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer of an IP to adapt that way. And I hope whoever gets it does it justice, doesn't just milk it for money, hires the right creatives, people who understand and love the property and can do it proper justice, But either way, a perfect IP to adapt into a TV show, and I wish them all the luck in the world.
Yeah.
And we're going to close on Ninja Turtles, much like how everything opened with Ninja Turtles.
we gotta bookend it.
So why don't you tell them, Brett, what's your Ninja Turtles rumor that's got you all excited?
So there's a rumor that next year, which like it's probably not going to be next year. It'll probably end up getting pushed back because video game development. But the rumor is next year we will be getting a AAA, which means big budget, probably developed by maybe a very well-known, or hopefully a well-known, successful developer, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. And I was like, listen, these beat 'em ups are fun. We're eating good. The beat 'em ups are fun. I love them. But like, give me a friggin' big open world, or like, even if it's not open world, like a cool action combat focused Ninja Turtle game where I can co-op with my friends. Now, as soon as they announced this too, I was just like, the first thing I could think of, and listen, I'm sure this game is going to be great, but we really haven't seen much of it, and it keeps getting delayed. But I was like, I kind of wish Rocksteady, instead of doing this Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, was doing a Ninja Turtles game. Because I know, and everyone always says like, oh, just stick it into the Arkham formula. But like, you know what? That formula works good, and it would work so good for the Turtles. I mean, even go further, we have the Gotham Knights game that's about to come out in about a month. I think in October, we're launching Gotham Knights, which is made by WB Montreal, which is the studio that made the Arkham Origins game, which was like the prequel, and which is a very good game, and people shit on it for some reason. That game was awesome. Had great boss fights. So they're making Gotham Knights. And then I also thought, because I'm like, well, Rocksteady's not doing it. You know what? WB Montreal, I kind of wish this got, because here's the thing. Gotham Knights, I think because it is connected to the Batman IP, is getting shit on a little bit for not being exactly like, or is just like everyone's kind of looking at it like, oh, is it going to live up to the Arkham games? So it kind of has some unfair baggage attached to it. And listen, I think the game showed pretty well, but I've seen some people being like, oh, it looks a little weird and janky. We'll see when it comes out. But it's got a co-op aspect to it, and you could do it's only 2-player, but it's drop in, drop out co-op online. And I was like, wow, you know what? Had they made this game as a Ninja Turtle game, I think like everyone would just receive it positively, and they wouldn't have to have the baggage that it's kind of attached to right now. But again, those are two studios that have games. One's not out yet. One's about to come out. they're not working on this Ninja Turtle game. So I don't know who, we don't have a name of a studio. I don't know who's doing it. The only other game I could think of in recent memory that was pretty good was Platinum Games that does like Bayonetta. They also do a lot of like licensed like games. They did a Transformers game and a couple other things. It's like every other like one is good. But their series Bayonetta is like amazing, awesome action series. Like they did a licensed Ninja Turtles game on the like GameCube era, PS2 GameCube, and that one was actually pretty good. It was kind of a beat 'em up, but it was a 3D beat 'em up, and it had some cool stuff. It had some skill trees, some unlockables, stuff like that. But it was kind of shallow. It got a little repetitive towards the end, but. Listen, an open world game, Ninja Turtles, where you could go in the turtle blimp, fly around the city, jump down. You could use the big van, and you could listen. It did the Listen, the Batmobile in Arkham Knight was like actually not that fun and got a little annoying after a while. They forced you into some shitty missions with it, but I want to drive the turtle van.
Yeah,
I'm
currently stuck on that, by the way. Yeah. I restarted Arkham Knight a few months back. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I restarted a few months back on like hard difficulty to be like, all right, let me give this a shot again. Up the difficulty, and I'm in some mission that involves the Batmobile, and I've tried it like 39 times, and I can't get through it. And I just said, screw it, I'm never playing this again.
The tank combat stuff sucks. I love driving the Batmobile, but then when you have to do the stupid tank and fight, it's like it was like so drawn out and repetitive. And also like the weird thing about Arkham Knight, like I know it's not tangent, there were no boss fights in Arkham Knight. They just completely removed all boss fights.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense when Asylum had great ones, City had great ones, then Origins came out, had amazing ones, and then Arkham Knight was like, nah, we're not going to do it. I was like, how do you know? Whatever. So anyway, that's the whole thing. But anyway, I hope this rumor is true. I would love it. Hopefully, I would love if they base it more off of the comics and it's a little grittier, or even if they used like the original like OG, not the second or third one, but the OG movie aesthetic. Could be really cool, like a darker, grittier Manhattan, and maybe a little upstate New York that the Turtles could kind of go in.
Maybe set it in the 80s.
And set it in 80s New York when New York was like a total piece of shit, when it was like a total dumpster fire.
The 80s that would actually be
that would be like the 80s of the Joker, like movie with the Gotham, like is based off of 80s New York. Yeah. Like that's everything. Like, so, like I know everyone's sick of open world, so I guess it doesn't have to be open world, but an open world won't be really cool. Or like they could ride on their rocket skateboards around the city. Like there's so many cool ways they could transport, like being able to switch turtles, like on the fly, being able to do co-op and do missions together and do like combo moves. Like we have the horsepower now in these systems to do this shit. Like this could be a fucking awesome game. I wonder who's developing it. And, when they say it's coming in 2023, like, are we just going to get the first look next year? Has this been developed for a few years already? Yeah. Like, what's really going on? But listen, Turtles is proving to be a really hot franchise again. Like, it's very popular with the children. Obviously, popular with the adult man children like me, like us. Like, I love my Ninja Turtles. So, like, it's crazy how that's like really come back. Because listen, we've seen a lot of nostalgia things come back. Some of them have been like hit or miss. Some of them kind of came back and just like, went back away. But the Turtles, I don't know what it is about Ninja Turtles. It must be their asses. I don't know. But
if you pause it, you see that.
If you pause it, you see that turtle ass popping out of the shell. I think that might be it. But there's something about these turtles. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And on that note, there's something about wrapping up this podcast.
Oh, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I think episode 162, we covered an awful lot. We gave you over an hour and 20 minutes of impassioned fanboy nonsense over.
There's at least 30 minutes of talk about Ninja Turtles. And I'm not ashamed. I'm not fucking ashamed.
At all.
But
if you are ashamed and you would like to share that shame with us, you could send an email to thefanboypodcast@gmail.com. You could follow us on Twitter at @thefanboyshow, or you could follow Brett directly at SuperBrettCon, or myself at Superman on Film, all one word. And let us know how ashamed we should be for talking about the Turtles for over a half hour on this week's show. But yes, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this week for another edition of The Fanboy. We have an Ask the Fanboy special coming up pretty soon, so do get some more questions into the inbox over there. because we've already got some goodies, but we could always use some more.
Yeah.
And until next
You know what?
time,
I want to, well, before you sign off, on the Ask
Do
the
it.
Fanboy, we do have
Yes.
a lot of great questions. We have like a ton of questions.
yes.
What I also want to throw in there too, just because I think it's more fun for us too. There's obviously a
Yeah.
lot of questions about topics and the geek them. I'm cool with some like off-topic questions too. Like if you're like, what is best sandwich or something like that. Like I'm like serious.
Yeah.
Like ask us like some weird shit. I don't know. Let's get fun. Like we could talk about
Let's get weird.
all the geek stuff. We will. But yeah, if you want to ask us like just like other things outside of what we normally talk about, I think that's cool too. And I would personally really appreciate those kinds of questions. I think that's fun. I would love
Just
to.
don't ask.
Yeah, about
Go
turtle
ahead.
ass. Don't ask about
Don't
turtle
ask
ass.
about turtle ass, and don't
Yeah.
ask if we wear pants while recording, because that's a
Yeah.
very personal thing, and we're not going to go there.
I'm not.
But-
I'm just not going to tell you.
That's right. I prefer the mystery.
Yeah.
So until next time, be kind.
And stay fanboy.
Adios.